You lock your phone with your face. You trust that no one else can get in. But 3 centuries ago, a king locked a man's face away instead, and no one has ever gotten it out. For 34 years, a prisoner moved through the fortresses of France with his face covered. Not covered in iron, as the legend insists, but in black velvet, thick enough that even his jailers rarely saw what lay beneath. He ate alone. He spoke to almost no one. And when he finally died in the Bastille in 1703, he was buried under a name that belonged to nobody. Why does a nation bury its most guarded secret under a fake name and still let the truth leak out for 300 years?
Here is what we know for certain, and it is less than you'd think. A man arrived at the fortress of Pignerol in 1669, delivered by royal order. His guard, a man named Benin de Saint-Mars, treated him with a strange mix of severity and respect. Strict enough to keep him isolated, careful enough to keep him alive, fed, and comfortable. That combination is the whole mystery in miniature. You don't treat a nobody that way. You don't treat a dangerous man that way either. You treat someone that way when you are terrified of what he might say. Saint-Mars did not stay in one place. He was promoted, moved, transferred across French prisons for 3 decades. And each time he moved, he brought exactly one prisoner with him, the masked man. Wherever Saint-Mars went, the mask went too, like a shadow that outranked every other inmate in France. Think about that for a second. An entire career built around guarding one face.
The mask itself has been exaggerated by history. Voltaire, writing decades later, was the one who turned velvet into iron, and the myth stuck. Alexander Dumas took Voltaire's rumor and turned it into fiction, and the fiction became what most people now believe is fact. That's often how mysteries survive, not through evidence, but through repetition. Say a thing enough times, dress it in iron instead of cloth, and the exaggeration becomes the memory. So who was under the velvet? The theories multiply the moment you start looking. Some historians have proposed Ercole Antonio Mattioli, an Italian diplomat who betrayed a secret treaty to Louis XIV's enemies. Betrayal of that kind was unforgivable to a king obsessed with control, and burying the evidence, quite literally under cloth, would fit a monarch determined to erase his own mistake in trusting the wrong man.
Others land on Vivien de Boulogne, a disgraced military officer whose cowardice at a siege cost French lives. A humiliating story like that, if it reached the wrong ears, could embarrass the crown for a generation. But the theory that has aged best comes from the historian Jean-Christian Petitfils, who spent years combing through royal correspondence and prison records most people never bothered to open. Petitfils built a detailed case for a lesser-known valet named Eustache Dauget, a servant who may have witnessed something no servant was ever supposed to see. Not a nobleman, not a spy, a man whose only crime might have been standing in the wrong room at the wrong moment. That theory unsettles people more than any of the others, because it means the mask wasn't hiding a dangerous man at all. It was hiding an inconvenient one.
There's a darker possibility, too, one that filmmaker and writer Marcel Pagnol championed decades before Petitfils. Pagnol argued the prisoner was Nicolas Fouquet, once the second most powerful man in France,
arrested and imprisoned for corruption that may have simply been a cover story for outshining the king himself. Fouquet's wealth, his taste, his ambition, all of it reportedly rivaled Louis XIV's own image of royal grandeur. A king who cannot tolerate a rival does not need a crime. He only needs a reason that sounds official. Notice what all these theories share. They aren't really about the prisoner. They're about the king.
Louis XIV ruled through absolute control. Every gesture at Versailles, every ritual around his morning routine, every carefully staged appearance was designed to project a single idea: that the king saw everything and controlled everything. A prisoner whose identity could never be confirmed was the perfect symbol of that same control turned inward, aimed at a truth the king needed erased rather than punished. That's the strange twist historians keep returning to. This wasn't a story about silencing an enemy. It was a story about silencing an embarrassment. A political rival humiliated the wrong way. A servant who saw something unspeakable. A diplomat whose betrayal reflected badly on the king's own judgment. In every version, the crime isn't really the prisoner's. It's the king's, laundered through someone else's face. What does it take to disappear a person that thoroughly?
You need loyalty across 3 decades, which St. Mars provided without a single documented lapse. You need architecture, cells designed with double doors, so guards could check on the prisoner without ever seeing him directly. You need bureaucracy, willing to file paperwork under invented names, never questioning why. And you need one more thing, the thing that makes this story different from ordinary censorship. You need everyone involved to understand, without being told twice, that some questions are simply never asked again. That's what makes the mask more than a costume. It's a boundary, a wall built not of stone, but of collective silence, maintained by dozens of people over 34 years, none of whom left behind a single confirmed name. And here's the detail that still unsettles researchers today. When the prisoner died, his room was scrubbed, furniture burned, walls scraped and repainted. Every object he'd touched, destroyed. Not the actions of a jailer closing a file, the actions of someone erasing a person's fingerprints from history itself. You felt a smaller version of that instinct, the message you almost sent and deleted before anyone saw it, the mistake you scrubbed from a document before anyone could screenshot it. The difference is scale, not psychology. Louis XIV wasn't a monster from a different species of human being. He was a man protecting his reputation the same way people protect it today, just with more absolute cower and a velvet mask instead of a delete button. Modern historians studying court secrecy, including work built on Petty Fields' archival research, keep circling back to the same conclusion. The identity may never be confirmed beyond reasonable doubt, because the system was built precisely so that it couldn't be. Not through incompetence, through design. A well-run cover-up doesn't fail to answer the question. It removes the ability to ask it. Maybe that's the real mystery of the man in the Iron Mask. Not who he was, but how effectively an entire kingdom agreed to make sure nobody would ever know. You lock your phone with your face because you trust the system to protect your privacy. 3 centuries ago, a king used a different kind of lock. One built from silence, loyalty,
and 34 years of nobody asking the one question that mattered.